All right, guys, I got a surprise for you. I just caught a giant on a big worm, and we are going to dive in to my big worm tips for the heat of the summer. So let's get this thing out. Biggest bass of the year. Look at this thing. My gosh, what a beautiful fish. Guys, caught it on a big worm. I'm gonna tell you all the tips about it right now. Look at that fish. Just a beautiful fish. Oh my gosh. All right, so that fish right there, that giant, came on this very simple 10-inch power worm. It's the middle of August, out here in the summertime. We actually had a little bit more current today on the Tennessee River. Just really, really simple fishing. I'm gonna walk you through my setup for a big worm when I'm out here fishing ledges, little hard spots or rock piles, stuff like that. A couple more tips for you guys that wanna experience, you know, a good worm bite. So first off, pretty simple, it's Texas rigged, right? I got a Berkley Fusion 5/0 hook. I got that with a 10-inch Berkley Powerbait power worm. I got it on 15-pound Berkley Trilene 100% fluorocarbon, and I'm using a 1/4 ounce weight. So let's dive into the hook. First off, you want to use, I like to use an EWG, and a lot of guys typically are using that for a big worm. A big problem that I see a lot of guys doing is, you can see how this is rigged up. See how the tip is barely into the back of that worm? What I see a lot of guys do is they get that hook point, they almost get it buried into the worm too much. You gotta think, when that fish eats it, okay, and it bites down, and you got all this plastic around the tip of your hook, that hook point's gotta make its way out of there somehow and then into the fish's mouth, correct? And so the less plastic you have, the better off you're gonna be. Now, if you don't even, Texpose it into the plastic, you're gonna risk hanging up. So being very conscious of how much plastic you have will dramatically increase your hookup ratio. I've seen it, I've done it before, where your worm's screwed up and then you'll rehook it and stick it in further into the plastic. Well, what happens, that fish will eat it, and all that worm has to do is twist from one side to the other. And look, now all you got is, when it rolls down, you just buried that hook point further into the worm, never getting a hook in that fish. That's a huge, huge deal. So along with that, along with the hook point, I always take a set of pliers here, and I just kind of flex that hook point up. So it's not a lot, but it's just enough, okay? Take this off of here. It's just enough to separate from that line tie, okay? So it's got a little bit more gap to it. I always like to do that. So that's another little trick for you when you're Texas rigging your worm. So the next thing, as you can see, just slid all the way down, is my weight. A big thing that I like to do when I'm Texas rigging a worm is, I don't like to peg it. And a lot of guys will peg this setup right here. And what you're doing is limiting the action of this bait. It's a patient bait, but it's doing a lot more under the water than what you think it's doing. And anytime you can get this, it's gonna hit that bottom, be bouncing across that shell, it's gonna separate from the actual worm. So you're not, if you had this pegged, it's never going to separate. It's always going to be attached to it and be on the bottom. But what will happen is, this weight will get down here, and now it's almost kind of like a Carolina rig, and it'll flop up in the current, or be, do its own deal, have a different action, and then you pull it, goes straight back to it, goes back down to the bottom. It starts to separate itself out again. So you get a lot more action, and I feel like you get a lot more bites by not pegging your weight. And the next thing is talking about your weight, the size of your weight. What size do you throw? For me, this is a 1/4 ounce weight, very light. Even when I'm fishing 12, 15 feet of water, I feel like I can get more bites with a lighter weight. This thing will bounce along in the current real naturally, kind of flushing along. Now, if the current's pulling real hard, I'll go up to a 3/8 or whatnot, but I always want to start off as light as possible. Again, going back to giving that bait more action and more natural action. How many things do you see out in nature that are just dug down into the bottom, and you move them and they're just welded to the bottom all the time, and they're not, it doesn't flow right. Everything in the water has its own natural action. So going light on your weight is a big deal. And obviously the color of your worms, red bug, Tennessee River is always a good color, but keep it simple. Green pumpkin, black and blue, red bug. That's about the only 3 colors you really need. Watermelon red people throw. I don't get real picky on the colors. I do get picky about the type of worm I do throw though. Big 10-inch power bait power worm. This thing's caught fish for me way back since I started fishing. But now it has the scent in it. You smell it, it's just like opening a package from 15 years ago. So super cool with that. It's gonna allow those fish to hold on a little bit longer. You don't have to put a bunch of scent on it. So that's one thing that I don't stray far from, is always using the power bait, just because of that. You're gonna let that fish swim off with it a little bit more. And that's a big thing too, is on the hook sets. Typically when they eat this worm, you don't wanna set the hook right away. I kind of feel that bite, reel the slack up basically with your rod tip down, make sure it still has it. And I mean, think about it, that's a big bait. So a big fish is going to eat the whole thing at once, right? Because really it crumbles up to be a little tiny bait. But let's just say you got one that's being picky, he's gonna grab here or grab here, and then he's gonna swallow it. So if you get a bite and he's back here, you miss him. So trust me, he's not gonna let go of this thing. Give it a little bit of time, count it down. There it is, okay, gotcha, set the hook. And when you set the hook, reel down into them really good. 15-pound line, it's gonna have a little bit of stretch in it. You wanna get a good hook set in them. Overall, I got it on a 7.6 Fantasista Premier by Abu Garcia. It's a medium heavy rod, allows me to cast, but it's also got pretty soft tip to it, and enough backbone to get a good hook in them. And then you got the Revo ALF high-speed reel. It's an 8-to-1 gear ratio. But this is the setup I just caught that giant on. I caught another 4 and another 5 just before that. Really fun day. Decided that gotta call my wife, come down here, film this video right now because we've had some fun. And luckily, the rain has held off for us for this video. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to go pick you up some dang worms and throw them around right now. It's the best time, whether you're throwing it at a pond or whether you're throwing it out on the Tennessee River. They're going to catch fish this time of the year. So I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and like the video if you did. So thank you guys. We'll see you next time.